Imagine a vast ocean of golden light stretching beyond time and space. At its heart, a radiant figure emerges, enveloped in an aura of wisdom and power. He does not walk, he floats, as if the secrets of the universe upheld him. His eyes, deep and glimmering like ancient stars, seem to read the most hidden truths of the soul. This is Saint Germain, a master of mysteries, a traveler between dimensions, and today, your guide in the supreme art of conscious creation. Through these words, you are invited on a unique journey, one that transcends the barriers of the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary. Here you will discover that you are much more than a mere spectator in the play of your life. You are the author, the director, and the divine spark that gives it meaning. Every thought, every emotion, every intention is a brush with which you can shape your destiny. Prepare to cross thresholds that cannot be seen with physical eyes. On this journey, the barriers of time and space will dissolve, and the laws of the universe will reveal themselves as instruments at your service. Here begins a profound exploration of the power within you, where the words of Saint Germain will resonate as an eternal echo, guiding you toward mastery of your reality. Welcome, traveler of the soul, to this illuminated path. Your awakened consciousness is the first act of creation. Master creators in the making, recognizing and embracing your power to create. When you dare to connect with your soul and express the truth about yourself, you take an important step. You recognize that you are also God, and that you have the power to create your own life. This recognition is not an act of pride or spiritual superiority, but simply the understanding that you are the source and author of your experience. This is a leap in consciousness and a sign of your mastery. At this point, you understand that you are an individualized focus of divine consciousness within the greater life of God. You are unique, but at the same time, you are part of God. Solving this apparent paradox is a sign that you are assuming your mastery. You understand that all the power of divinity is within you, and that as God, you can create, love, and experience your reality fully. What happens when you first recognize that you are the creator of your life? You realize that everything you have experienced, the joys and the sorrows, the successes and the failures, are the product of your own creations. There is no one to blame. Imagine you are a painter. You don't go back and change every brushstroke or line of a completed painting because now you see it differently. You accept it as an expression of the knowledge and experience you had at that moment. You love it for what it is, and you move forward. You take a new canvas and begin to create again, this time with a renewed awareness of your power as a creator. For many, accepting the idea that they are master creators can be unsettling. It's one thing to create unconsciously without recognizing that you are the artist of your life and blaming others or circumstances for what happens. But it's something entirely different when you create consciously. You know that you choose the tools, the colors, and that only you determine whether your creations inspire you or not. This is a key point. When you create consciously, you take full responsibility for what arises in your life, and although it may be unsettling at first, it is also deeply liberating. A current example of this would be when someone assumes that their job dissatisfaction is not their boss's or colleagues' fault, but the result of their own decisions and attitudes. Instead of continuing to blame, they begin to consciously create a different work environment, whether by changing their focus or even seeking a new job from a place of inner power. It is common for fear of creating again to arise when entering this consciousness of mastery. Perhaps you remember past moments when you created unconsciously and didn't like the results. This fear may make you uncomfortable with your tools. Perhaps the blank canvas of your life, instead of inviting you to express yourself, paralyzes you. Has this happened to you? Many find it familiar. You begin to doubt your creative ability and wonder if you are truly the master you thought you were. This block can lead to resignation, convincing yourself that it is better not to try anything new because who would notice? But this resignation is unnecessary and sad because there is another way. Think of Michelangelo, one of the greatest artists of all time. Do you think he never doubted his ability? Of course he did. But what made him a master was his ability to persist and create, even when fear or doubt arose. He didn't give up his art. He moved forward, trusting in his ability to create something beautiful, even when the process was challenging. In the same way, when you recognize your mastery, the fear of failure should not stop you. The important thing is to keep creating with new awareness and with the understanding that you are a master creator. You may be familiar with Michelangelo. In the early 1500s, the Pope asked him to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, a monumental task that took him 4 years to complete. The interesting thing is that although Michelangelo was a master sculptor, he did not consider himself a painter. In fact, when he received the commission, he was worried and filled with doubts. He thought he wasn't prepared for the task, and he also suspected that his rivals had encouraged him to accept the project in the hope of seeing him fail. However, despite his misgivings, he accepted the challenge. The result was one of the most admired masterpieces in the history of art. Like Michelangelo, we all face obstacles when we enter new territory. The artist had to overcome many technical challenges, designing scaffolding from which to paint, developing a plaster that would hold the paint, and creating brushstrokes that could be clearly seen from below. Each of these obstacles was new to him, but he overcame them with his mastery. This reminds us that, like Michelangelo, you too are a master, not of marble or paintbrushes, but of self-awareness. Being a master of self-awareness means knowing that God lives in you as you and living your life with this understanding. You recognize that your creations, your experiences, are the result of the beliefs in your mind and the desires in your heart, and that God collaborates with you to bring those creations into reality. When you reach this level of self-awareness, you may feel challenged. It is natural that as you delve deeper into a greater awareness of your creative power, you might feel some fear of the unknown. Perhaps, like Michelangelo in front of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, you feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of what you are about to create. However, just like the artist, you have the ability to combine your knowledge and skills with a new tool, the awareness of who you truly are. This gives you the possibility to create something completely different from what you had created before, something more aligned with your truth. Up until now, you have probably created your life consciously with familiar tools, preconceived ideas about who you are, and the emotions of everyday life. Perhaps the results of those creations haven't always satisfied you, but they have been masterful in their own way. Now, with greater self-awareness, you have the opportunity to create from a higher, more conscious place. Think of it in current terms. Imagine you've spent years creating a life based on external expectations or what others think you should do. But now, by recognizing your creative power, you realize that you can redirect your efforts. You can create a life aligned with your deepest and most authentic desires. This is your mastery, the ability to create consciously, knowing that you are the author of your reality. Just like Michelangelo, you may be facing a new canvas. Although it may seem intimidating at first, it is also an opportunity to express your mastery in new and exciting ways. Don't let the unknown intimidate you. As you step into this new medium, you will discover that you have all the tools necessary to create something beautiful. Remember, true mastery is not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with confidence in those moments of uncertainty, where you can discover your ability to create at a higher level. The power of stillness, rediscovering your creator mastery. Before you embark on creating something new in your life, it's essential to take a moment to readjust. There's no need to rush. Stop. Stay still and look inward, to that place of self-confidence. From there, you can begin anew with greater clarity. Don't be discouraged by the unknown, but ask yourself, what could this new opportunity be? Let's go back to the example of Michelangelo. When he was handed a paintbrush instead of a chisel and asked to paint instead of sculpt, he was desperate. He thought that he was no longer a master because he wasn't working with marble. Of course he wasn't. Instead, Michelangelo took stock of his skills. He realized that his mastery did not solely reside in marble, but in his knowledge, his ability to visualize and understand form, perspective, and color. Even though the tools were different, his creativity remained intact. This is a key point for us as well. Circumstances may change, but our mastery does not disappear. We are still capable of creating with what we have, of adapting to new circumstances, and of finding inspiration in what is presented to us. Michelangelo didn't let the unfamiliarity of the medium stop him. On the contrary, he embraced the new challenge with an open mindset and creativity. And so can you. Just like Michelangelo, you are a master creator. You may face an unexpected change in your life, a new situation, or a challenge that takes you out of your comfort zone. However, what truly matters is that you have the ability to adapt your knowledge and skills to this new context. Your creativity is not limited by the tools you use, but by your ability to see new opportunities and embrace them. Let's consider a current example. Imagine you've worked in a field for many years, and suddenly you face a career change or a new technology. At first, you may feel intimidated by the unknown. But by remembering your mastery and what you've learned over the years, you'll realize that you can adapt those skills to this new situation. Your problem-solving abilities, your communication skills, and your leadership remain the same, only now they are expressed in a new medium. Once you accept your mastery and recognize that your ability to create goes beyond any past experience, the fear of the unknown begins to fade. Instead of feeling intimidated, you will feel inspired. You will see your divinity reflected in everything you do and make it your own, allowing your intuition to guide your creative process. In doing so, you will free yourself from the expectations you had about who you should be or what you should achieve. This brings an emotional liberation as you free yourself from judgments and internal criticisms that once limited you. You've entered a new world where fluidity and ease are the rules of the game. Here, the freedom of expression is your birthright. When you finally see your creation, whether a new relationship, a project, or a change in your personal or professional life, you will marvel at what you have accomplished. You might even ask yourself, did I create this? And the answer you will give is yes, because you are truly a master creator. The New Awakening, a path toward unity and harmony. If you stop for a moment and observe the history of life on your planet, you will notice that something important has changed. A new world is awakening. In the past, in the old world, we allowed many abuses. We allowed greed to replace happiness, and we often acted with kindness only when it personally benefited us. However, in this new world, things will no longer be the same. In the new world, we have learned that true happiness is not achieved at the expense of others, but within a framework of unity that elevates everyone equally. It is no longer about individual interests, but about shared well-being. Your divinity is what will provide this framework in which happiness and peace will be possible for all. In this new world, you will find people like you, people who have chosen to deepen their relationships with God, with themselves, and with others. Together, they will form more connected societies capable of achieving greater harmony on the planet without losing the personal freedoms that each person values. What will feel new in this world is a shared vision of peace and goodwill, something that in the old world was hard to imagine. Harmony will replace the chaos we once knew. Let's think about current examples. Nowadays, there are global movements promoting sustainability, where people understand that the well-being of the planet is deeply connected to the well-being of all human beings. These movements focus not just on individual benefits, but on a shared vision of a better world. In this sense, the new world is not just a dream. It is a reality that is already taking shape in the way we work together. One of the most important aspects of the new world is that sharing your divinity builds a better world. This is because shared divinity is what we are in essence. We are all individual points of consciousness connected to each other through the mind of God. Cooperation is natural for us. It is part of our essence. We cannot change this fact even if we wanted to. By choosing to live consciously in this way, instead of resisting it, we discover that we achieve much more together in unity than we could do alone. To better understand this, we can view it as a tapestry. Imagine that you are a single thread in a larger tapestry that represents humanity. If you look closely at yourself, you'll notice that you can distinguish yourself by your own color and shine, which represent the unique way in which you express your divinity. You're a unique expression of the God that resides within you. If you look closer at the tapestry, you'll notice that the threads are intertwined. This interweaving symbolizes your relationships with others. These relationships add texture to your life, allowing you to share moments with other people. But when these relationships include God, they become something more than mere connections. They become an expression of God shared among all. Finally, this tapestry also represents the human collective. Just as a tapestry can dress a body or decorate a room, our societies, when united in the love of God, can achieve things that would be impossible to do individually. One example of this is the cooperation between countries and global organizations to solve complex problems such as climate change or humanitarian crises. Only when we work together in unity can we achieve meaningful progress. The lesson here is that just like the threads of the tapestry, our lives are intertwined. We are stronger when we are together. And when our relationships are based on love and divinity, we can build a much better world than we could have imagined alone. Imagine that the new world we are entering is like a great orchestra. In an orchestra, there are many musicians playing different instruments, violinists, flutists, percussionists, and more. Each one has their unique part, and although they are all different, together they create a rich musical experience. No musician dominates another, and everyone listens and synchronizes so that the music flows harmoniously. In the old world, it was as if the orchestra had not rehearsed. The musicians played without coordination, some louder, others softer, some out of time. The result was dissonant and chaotic, something unpleasant to hear or endure. Similarly, our old world was full of chaos and conflict, where the lack of harmony manifested in our relationships and societies. Now, as we move into a new stage of greater harmony and consciousness, we have the opportunity to be like that well-tuned orchestra. Each of us has a unique expression, and by resonating with our soul, we also deeply touch others. The more experienced musicians know that to play well, they must listen to those around them. In the same way, we must learn to listen to others in order to create a more harmonious society. What is to come is a new world where many of you already value harmony and flow. We have reached a point where it will be easier to unite and create something better. It is no longer about fighting to get what we need. However, before this new world takes shape, there will be a cleaning of everything that no longer serves us, which can be disconcerting in these moments of uncertainty. It's important not to become discouraged. Let's think about the orchestra again. When two musicians who value harmony meet, they will naturally come together to create something they couldn't do alone. This is the spirit that will guide the creation of the new world. If your answer to the question of whether these musicians should unite is yes, then you know that this is the same principle that will guide you and everyone who seeks a better world. Just like a symphony depends on each musician playing their part fully and in harmony, the new world will be built by individuals who express themselves fully in a context of unity. This world will be the result of collaboration, where each person contributes their uniqueness while simultaneously listening to and respecting others. By supporting each other in this process, we will quickly discover that we are creating a better place to live. The key is in awareness and sensitivity. Just like in an orchestra, where each musician tunes their instrument and adjusts their volume to complement the others, we must also find the balance between our individual expression and the collective well-being. Remember, what we build together will be more powerful and harmonious than what we could have achieved separately. This is the principle that will guide the awakening of the new world. Humanity is beginning to awaken to the consciousness of prosperity. We are learning that prosperity, security, and well-being are not things that are obtained at the expense of others, but gifts that are given mutually. In this new world, it is no longer possible to prosper if we do so at the expense of others, nor will the planet or ourselves allow it. What is happening is a great transformation. It has nothing to do with the supposed scarcity of resources, as this is a fiction we have created. There has always been enough for everyone. Our key resources like air, water, and solar energy are renewable. What we are lacking is a deep understanding that all our lives are interconnected. You, your neighbors, and the rest of the world beat to the rhythm of a common heart. One of the fundamental principles that the rest of the universe already understands is that prosperity begins with charity, and charity begins with the heart. Prosperity begins with the heart. This means that the more you give from a place of love and generosity, the more prosperity you will experience. Imagine sharing your time or resources with someone who needs it. In doing so, you're not only helping that person, but opening your heart to receive as well. On the other hand, if you close yourself off and deny others, it is not because the universe is punishing you, but because you are blocking yourself by not allowing love to flow freely to and from you. Closing the heart is like building a prison. You may think you're guarding your treasures, but in reality, you're depriving yourself of the joy, comfort, and abundance you could be experiencing. You are alone and isolated, rather than being part of a network of interdependence where everyone benefits from shared well-being. One of the most powerful lessons we've begun to understand is the paradox of our individuality and interdependence. On one hand, we are unique beings, individual reflections of the divinity. Each of us has our own essence and path. However, at the same time, we depend on one another to fully express our divinity. In this new world, it's no longer about competing or exploiting others. It's about sharing and expanding the love of God among all, because the more we share, the more we grow. This is the meaning of the new relationships, where we do not depend on others for our happiness, but instead enrich each other by sharing what we already are. Divine love. All of humanity must come to an understanding of its common life. This is not theoretical. It is a direct experience that we will soon see reflected in matters related to prosperity. Prosperity is no longer a privilege for a few, but the result of a conscious collaboration between all. By accepting this truth, we open ourselves to a new world where abundance flows toward everyone and where the well-being of each person contributes to the collective well-being. It is possible that you have already worked on your own prosperity issues, experiencing varying degrees of success. Perhaps you know that attracting abundance requires clarity, focused intention, and loving self-acceptance. However, there is something more to it. To bring true prosperity into your life, it is not enough to work on yourself. You must be willing to give and receive from others. There is no other way. Opening your heart is essential. Why is this so important? Because God is the source of your prosperity, and collectively, you are also God. This fact is undeniable. One cannot exist without the other. You may remember this truth as an individual, but that is not enough. We must collectively decide to live according to this principle. The cause of prosperity is not only individual, it is also a collective process. Each one of us has a crucial role in this collective awakening. Just as the cells in your body cannot refuse to receive nourishment that comes from the heart, we also cannot reject the truth of our interdependence. We all share the life of God, and it is this connection that causes our prosperity. Imagine a community where some people temporarily give more and others receive more. At first, it might seem like there is an imbalance, but this is only an illusion. What really matters is that by sharing and receiving freely, without hidden agendas or selfish intentions, everyone ends up prospering. This is the true awakening of prosperity, understanding that interdependence is the key to everyone thriving. Think of collaborative economy movements, where people share resources, knowledge, or skills without expecting immediate rewards. Apps like Airbnb or Uber, for example, show how sharing goods or services can benefit everyone in the long run. These platforms allow more people to prosper, not just economically, but also socially. This type of exchange and collaboration is the path to collective prosperity. For this process to work, it is essential that you open your heart to giving and receiving. When you give genuinely, without expecting anything in return, you align with the energy of prosperity. The same happens when you are willing to receive. Independence is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. By understanding and accepting this as humanity, we will no longer tolerate the abuses that have dominated the past. We are entering a new world where prosperity will no longer be something one obtains at the expense of another, but a constant flow of giving and receiving that benefits everyone. This is what it means to prosper together. Who isn't good enough? How many times have you asked yourself, when will I receive the goodness I deserve after all the good I've done for others? For many, the answer is too many times to remember. It is a question that arises when you feel that, despite your efforts and your generosity, rewards do not come. Think of all the times you heard the advice, do what you love, and the money will come. However, by following this advice, perhaps you found that you weren't valued by the people you chose to serve. This feeling of not being good enough can arise in many ways and in many areas of everyday life. Imagine that you've devoted time to taking care of a sick loved one, sacrificing your own rest and personal time, but in the end, you feel that your effort is not appreciated, or worse, criticized for not being enough. Or perhaps you strive to help your friends or family, only to feel that your actions are not recognized as you'd hoped. These feelings not only affect your emotional well-being, but also feed a deep belief in unworthiness. Why do we feel that we are not good enough? This feeling of inadequacy has deep roots. When you feel that you are not good enough, somewhere deep inside you, there is a belief that you are unworthy of love and must do something to earn it. This belief doesn't arise out of nowhere. It usually forms the first time we experience a separation from the love around us. For many, this occurs during childhood. Perhaps you were criticized for something you said or did, or you heard phrases like, "you're bad" or "don't be bad." These words, although they may seem simple, leave a deep emotional mark. Even now, as adults, those feelings of rejection may still be present deep within. Imagine that a child does something that is considered wrong, and as a response, they receive criticism or punishment. In that moment, the child internalizes the pain and starts to believe that there is something wrong with them, something that needs to be corrected to be accepted. Over time, these experiences accumulate, and the person comes to believe that they must work harder to gain the approval of others. Each time you feel you are not good enough, it's an indication that a part of you believes you must try harder to be loved. This internal conflict is common, especially when one part of you remembers your worth, while another part believes you must do something more to be worthy. This conflict begins in childhood, but if it is not healed with love and understanding, it persists into adulthood. Often these mistaken beliefs paralyze us, preventing us from fully enjoying the things we value in everyday life. For example, you might avoid activities or relationships out of fear of failing or not meeting expectations because you feel that your best effort is never enough. Imagine someone organizing a party for their friends. Despite doing everything possible to make it a special event, they end up feeling empty, worried that something didn't go right or that someone didn't enjoy it as they expected. This feeling of emptiness has nothing to do with what really happened, but with that deep belief of inadequacy that has been present for a long time. The truth is that many of us are on an emotional treadmill, trying to do things right to be valued, but always feeling that it is not enough. We strive harder and harder because, deep down, we believe we are not good enough to receive good things. This belief dates back to early rejections that left a deep impression on how we perceive ourselves and interact with others. To free ourselves from this trap, it is important to recognize that it's not about how hard you try, but about opening your heart to accept that you are already enough, just as you are. Healing this mistaken perception is a process that requires compassion and understanding toward yourself, and letting go of the need for perfection to be loved or accepted. Overcoming the voice that tells you that you are not enough, the voice that tells you that you are not good enough, is nothing more than a part of you, a subpersonality that was formed when you were a child. It's a small part of your consciousness that, at some point, became convinced that it was separate from the love of yourself and those around you. Even today, this part of you feels threatened and often appears to remind you that you don't deserve love or good things. The important thing is to understand that this voice is not you. It is just a fragment of your ego, a mistaken perception of who you truly are. This part of you believes so firmly that you are unworthy that it expects people to hurt or reject you. It is so convinced of this that it creates conditions where you easily feel restless or undervalued by others. This part of you, the not good enough, is also a saboteur. It will not let you escape its beliefs. For example, if you start doing something you enjoy, something that makes you happy or fulfilled, that part of you feels threatened. Then it whispers to you that you don't deserve to enjoy it, that you're really not good enough to feel good, and the more you listen to it, the more you believe it. An example of this is a person who decides to start exercising to improve their health. At first, they feel good, but soon that inner voice tells them, "You're not doing it well enough. You'll never be like those people you see in the gym." This voice can cause the person to give up their efforts, convincing them that they are not worthy of improving or enjoying their progress. This voice is cunning. If it doesn't manage to stop you through your own doubts, it may seek the disapproval of others to reinforce its belief. Perhaps you receive criticism or feel ignored by those you try to please, and this gives the voice the perfect excuse to say, "See, you're not good enough. Not even they value you." These types of dynamics affect not only people in their jobs or formal roles, but also parents who feel incapable of being good role models for their children, friends who believe they are not valuable enough for their social circles, or anyone who feels that their efforts, no matter how much they try, are not appreciated. Many people, especially those who want to serve others or improve the world, fall into the trap of this belief. So-called light workers often struggle with the feeling that they aren't doing enough or aren't appreciated for what they do. This illusion makes them think they must constantly sacrifice, and if they don't deserve to be valued. Imagine you have a friend who is always willing to help but rarely takes time for themselves. In the end, they feel exhausted and start thinking that despite all their effort, no one values them. This belief does not come from reality, but from that inner part telling them that no matter how much they do, it will never be enough. What to do when you face the not good enough? When you realize that this voice is speaking, it's important to recognize it for what it is: an illusion, a mistaken perception that you have carried for a long time. You don't have to listen to it or believe it anymore. It's time to see the game you're playing with yourself. Instead of waiting for things to crumble, you can choose to let go of this belief. You can remember that you are enough, that you do deserve love, and that good things can come into your life without constant sacrifice. Recognizing this will allow you to break free from that cycle of self-sabotage and start seeing things from a new perspective. When that inner voice tells you that you are not good enough, what you can really do is remember your true essence. You must know that you are more than enough because you are your divinity. God lives within you as your most intimate self, and for this reason, you have the power to choose a higher perspective every time doubt arises in your mind. When you hear that voice questioning you, you have the option to observe it from a neutral place. From that position of observer, you can see the part of you that is confused, the part that believes it is not enough, but instead of letting it control you, you offer love and compassion. By doing so, you remind that part of yourself who you truly are, a child of God, whole and loved, just as you are. Imagine you are in an everyday situation, like trying to organize a family gathering. The not good enough voice might tell you that you're not capable of planning something everyone will enjoy, or that people won't appreciate your effort. However, instead of letting that voice control you, you choose to look at it from a loving perspective. You tell that part of you that it's okay to feel insecure, but that it's not true that you're not enough. You remember your worth and what you can offer, and you move forward with love and confidence. The greatest gift you can give this part of yourself, the one that believes it is not good enough, is reinvention. You can reuse its energy so that instead of sabotaging you, it begins to support you. Let it know that you are complete and loved just as you are. Invite that voice to stay alert, but not to point out your flaws, but to help you recognize the opportunities to feel good about yourself. By recognizing your connection with God, you can start to live fully. Every time that voice of doubt appears, you can choose to redirect it toward love. Ask that part of you to stay alert to highlight the moments when you can enjoy what you're doing and feel good while doing it. As you do this, your life will be filled with blessings in ways you might not have imagined. Shame, guilt, and money. The next topic comes from a private session with a client who expressed a deep sense of helplessness related to money and financial institutions. The client shared how, for years, they had felt fear, stress, and a constant sense of helplessness in the face of banks and creditors. In their words, "I want to free myself from this illusion and be free. I want to feel powerful, free, and abundant, not fearful and powerless." This type of situation is more common than we think. Many people feel dominated by their financial worries, trapped in a dynamic of fear and guilt that seems impossible to break. But to address this issue, we first need to understand what the ego is and how it affects our relationship not only with money, but also with love and life. First, it's important to remember that the ego is not who you truly are. It has no life of its own. It is a deeply rooted, mistaken belief about yourself. In essence, the ego is the part of your mind that believes it is separate from God, from love, and from everything around you. The ego has made you believe that you are separate from your divinity, and that this separation has left you alone, vulnerable, and in need of surviving in a world that constantly threatens to take away what you have. It is a perception that originates in childhood, or even earlier, and has been reinforced by experiences throughout life. Imagine a person who has always felt that they don't have enough money to live comfortably. The ego tells them that if they don't have money, they have no value, that they are failing. And then, that person begins to worry, becomes distressed, and starts seeing money as the only means to feel safe. This is exactly what the ego wants, for you to focus on what you lack instead of what you already are. The ego convinces you that money is the only thing that will give you security, but it also tells you that you will never have enough, that you could always lose it, and that other people are out there to take it from you, with financial institutions controlling it. However, behind that distress, it wasn't really the money. It was the perception of separation and lack of love that the ego had cultivated. The ego had made them believe that the solution to their discomfort was outside of themselves in money, and that they would only have peace when they resolved those external problems. The truth is that God has never abandoned you. The love of God, which is the source of your prosperity and well-being, has always been with you. What has happened is that the ego has distorted your relationship with love and with the world, convincing you that you are separate from this source of abundance. The ego tells you that money and material goods are essential for your happiness and security, when in reality the source of everything you need is within you, in your connection with divine love. To change your relationship with money and free yourself from fear, it's crucial to awaken to this truth. What is really happening is that the ego is using shame and guilt to manipulate your relationship with money, making you believe that money is the solution to your emptiness. But money can never fill that emptiness. Only love and reconnecting with your true self can free you from this illusion. To free yourself from the cycle of fear, shame, and guilt in relation to money, you must start by recognizing that the ego is the source of this confusion. You are not your ego. You are a divine, complete, and loved being, and money does not determine your worth. By remembering that God is always with you, you can change your perspective and start to see money simply as a tool, not as a measure of your worth. Remember, prosperity is not just about how much money you have, but how you relate to love, to life, and to yourself. Freeing yourself from the illusion of the ego is the first step toward a fulfilling and abundant life. Subpersonalities and the ego, freeing the illusion of unworthiness. Throughout life, the ego has created a variety of internal characters known as subpersonalities. These subpersonalities are meant to protect you from what they perceive as external threats, especially those related to love, approval, and a sense of security. In its eagerness to protect you, these subpersonalities are based on the belief that the world is a dangerous place and that you are constantly at risk of losing what you value. How do subpersonalities form? These subpersonalities begin to form when, for the first time, you feel unloved or abandoned. For many, this experience occurred in childhood when you perceived a break in the flow of love with someone you trusted, such as your parents. Perhaps you said or did something that wasn't approved of, and as a result, that person withdrew their acceptance of you. At that moment, you internalized an image of yourself as someone inadequate or not enough. This perception transformed into a subpersonality of a child trying to please their parents, but their efforts go unrecognized, or worse yet, criticized. In that instant, the child may start to develop a subpersonality that tells them, "You're not good enough. You need to do more to be loved." This is the beginning of a cycle where the person feels that they must constantly strive to earn the love and approval of others. Now, what does this have to do with money? For many people, money is not just a matter of economic value, but a measure of their personal worth. A lack of money or financial problems can make you feel ashamed or guilty, as if you're not worthy of prosperity. The ego, with its subpersonalities, nurtures this perception of unworthiness and convinces you that your financial problems are related to your value as a person. Someone who has struggled with debt or banks might feel that somehow these problems reflect their lack of value. Every time they receive a letter from the bank or face a debt, their subpersonality called unworthy reminds them that they're not good enough, that they will never be able to handle their financial life, and therefore don't deserve to succeed. This subpersonality, which we call unworthy, pushes you to seek approval and validation from external sources. It convinces you that if you manage to gain the respect and acceptance of those you perceive as authorities or critics, like financial institutions, you will heal the wounds of your past. However, this strategy doesn't work. What happens instead is that you end up suffering unnecessarily. The control these financial institutions seem to have over your life can feel harsh and arbitrary, which further feeds the feeling of helplessness and lack of control. Let's consider a common example. A person who constantly feels anxious when reviewing their bank account or receiving a bill. Instead of seeing this situation as something manageable, the unworthy subpersonality takes control and tells them, "This is your fault. You're not enough to handle this." In this way, the person gets stuck in a cycle of problems. But the issue has nothing to do with what financial institutions think of you or gaining their approval. The real problem is that you've lost the internal validation of your own worth. It's not about solving your financial worth, but recognizing and healing the mistaken perception of your own worth. To free yourself from this illusion, you need to change the way you see these situations. Instead of allowing the unworthy subpersonality to sabotage you, you can start to challenge those internal beliefs. By doing so, you reclaim control over your self-worth and realize that your value doesn't depend on external circumstances, like money or the approval of others. Imagine that every time you face a financial challenge, instead of feeling shame or guilt, you allow yourself to remember that your worth is not at stake. You know your worth as something immutable, no matter the difficulties you face. In this way, you begin to release the limiting beliefs that have kept you trapped in fear and scarcity. If what you desire is to feel powerful, free, and abundant, you must first remember who you truly are. You are not that sub-personality called unworthy, but a divine, complete, and valuable expression. You are also part of God. You are God, and because of this, your worth is beyond any doubt. To dispel the beliefs that have made you feel unworthy, you must commit to remembering this truth at all times, especially when you feel doubt infiltrating your mind. Every time you struggle with the idea that you are not enough, you are actually making that belief more real in your mind. What happens is that by struggling against that illusion, you give it more power. In other words, you're convincing yourself that unworthiness is true. This is reflected, for example, in everyday situations where you compare yourself to others. Imagine that you go to a social gathering and start to feel that others have more complete or successful lives than you. At that moment, that inner voice of unworthiness tells you that you're not as valuable as the others. By believing that voice, you strengthen the illusion. However, the reality is that your worth has never been in question. The key is to recognize this and stop playing the game of unworthiness. Don't let those thoughts take control, because every time you feel ashamed or guilty about any aspect of your life, whether it's your financial situation, relationships, or even small daily interactions, you're strengthening the mistaken belief that you're not enough. The second step to breaking this illusion is very simple. Proclaim your truth. Every time you feel those thoughts of unworthiness appear, repeat this affirmation with conviction. I am perfectly whole, fully loved, worthy, and complete. For example, in your daily life, you might be doing something as routine as preparing a meal for your family. Perhaps you feel that in some way it's not good enough or that you're not the best cook. This thought, though small, is a manifestation of that belief in unworthiness. In that moment, remember the affirmation, I am whole and worthy. Claim your value in every little detail of your life. By regularly repeating this affirmation and living it with all your heart, you'll start to see how your self-worth strengthens and your inner struggles fade away. You will no longer need to prove yourself to anyone or your circumstances. You will see that any belief of not being enough will disappear, and you will begin to live with a new confidence. Once you've taken these two steps, stopping the illusion and proclaiming your value, there's nothing else you need to do. Simply anchor your consciousness in the truth that you are also part of God. You are God. Live your life with the confidence that you are complete and valuable just as you are. You don't need external validation from anyone because God loves you unconditionally, and your worth is beyond any questioning. Let's consider another example. Imagine you are dealing with financial difficulties or some personal challenge. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the situation or questioning your worth based on these problems, remember, I am whole and worthy. By doing so, you anchor yourself in the knowledge of your own divinity, and from that place of confidence, you will face challenges with more serenity and power. The path to abundance and love begins by remembering that you are already complete, and that your value does not depend on what you do or have, but on who you are. Choosing life in the midst of despair, recognizing the call of the soul, in times of deep crisis like the one a young woman shared when thinking of suicide, it may seem that the only way out is to free yourself from the physical body. But it's important to understand that death, though a transition from one form of consciousness to another, is not the only path. In fact, this change in consciousness can occur while you are still alive. Often when we go through profound changes in our lives, the process may feel like a true psychological death. We find ourselves facing overwhelming situations where it seems that the control we thought we had over our lives is collapsing. However, this process is actually an opportunity for the soul to take action. It's a sign that something in our life needs to be transformed. Something must die so that a new part of us can be born. For example, think of a time when you felt everything in your life was going wrong, a relationship that ended, a family crisis, or a major loss. In those moments, it may seem like nothing makes sense and losing control feels inevitable. The ego, that part of us that always wants to have control and fears losing it, panics. The ego tries to find quick solutions, rationalize the situation, or even deny reality. But when these strategies fail, an opportunity arises for something bigger, something deeper within us, to take center stage. The soul. The ego is that part of our personality that focuses on immediate needs, control, and the illusions of security we have created. When the ego feels it is losing that control, its reaction can be panic. Think of someone who has been trying to manage all aspects of their life, work, relationships, commitments, and when a crisis hits, like a breakup, a layoff, or an unexpected situation, the ego gets desperate because it doesn't know how to deal with a reality it can't control. At this point, the ego may suggest drastic solutions, like the idea that only physical death or a radical, abrupt change can solve the pain. But what is really happening is that the soul is knocking at the door, waiting to take control and guide the life in a more authentic way. When we face moments of deep sadness or despair, it is when the soul becomes more present. It is when we feel there must be something more than the problems we face, something that goes beyond the limitation of our daily lives. The soul calls us to real change, a change that not only solves an immediate problem but transforms how we live. An everyday example might be a person who, after years of struggling with their self-esteem, finally reaches a point of emotional exhaustion. At this critical moment, they might feel that nothing they do will be enough. However, this is the moment when the soul is at play, offering a new direction, a way to see life from a place of self-compassion and acceptance. The ego, feeling it no longer has control, may resist, but deep down it knows it cannot offer anything real compared to the peace and truth the soul provides. The ego is not our enemy, but it is afraid of being replaced. It fears that if the soul takes control, it will cease to exist. But this is just an illusion. The ego will not disappear. It will be integrated into a new way of being, where it is no longer solely responsible for making decisions. Let's think of a person dealing with a deep emotional breakup. The ego might suggest they should avoid feeling pain, that they should regain control of their emotions, or even make decisions to protect themselves. But if they listen to the soul's call, they will find guidance that helps them navigate the experience with more inner peace, recognizing that they don't need to fight against the pain, but accept it as part of the growth process. When we reach that moment when everything seems lost, the real challenge is surrendering to the possibility of transformation. It is not a surrender to suffering, but a surrender to the soul, the part of us that knows change is part of life, and that sometimes we must let a part of us die so that something new can emerge. So when you feel like everything is falling apart, remember that this is the moment when the soul is calling you. Listen to that call and allow the change to occur, not as a definitive death, but as a transformation that will lead you to a new way of life. In moments of vulnerability and despair, when we feel there are no more options and are ready to change, the ego may play one last trick on us. It may pretend to agree with the idea that the soul is what we need to find peace, but what the ego is actually seeking is to maintain control until the last moment. The ego, in its struggle to avoid disappearing, can adopt a conciliatory stance. It may tell you something like, "You're right. You need your soul. I will take you there. I will show you how to find the peace you long for. Just listen to my instructions." But this is where the deception begins. The ego will suggest that the only way to reunite with the soul is through death. This is the ego's final trick, proposing suicide as a way to find peace. However, this is a lie. It is not necessary to die physically to find your soul. Let's think of a common example. Imagine you are going through an extremely difficult situation, perhaps a breakup or a deep personal crisis. In those moments, the ego may make you believe that the only way out of that pain is to end it all. But instead of giving in to that idea, it's important to stop and ask yourself, is this really the only way? It is not. The ego fears disappearing when the soul takes control. That is why, instead of allowing the soul to enter and heal our life, the ego prefers to push us toward extreme decisions like suicide. For the ego, death seems like the only way out because it fears that if the soul starts guiding our decisions, the ego will no longer have the same power. However, the truth is that when we allow the soul to manifest while we are alive, everything that is not real, everything that comes from the ego, begins to fade away. We no longer need to flee or escape our circumstances. Instead, we can embrace the process of transformation that our soul offers us. My advice is that, instead of seeing death as a solution, invite your soul to be a part of your life now. You don't need to physically die to find the peace you long for. You can begin to live a soul-centered life right here, right now, and let that transformation occur in the present. If you decide to move forward, whether in this life or beyond, you will have to dismantle your ego. No matter which path you choose, this process of liberation is inevitable. To live a life fully centered in the soul, it is necessary to reclaim the power you have given to the ego and return it to the place where it has always belonged, your soul. This is the price of admission to a higher life, whether here on earth or in another dimension. There are no shortcuts in this process. It is something each of us must go through. Going through this process can feel like a true psychological death. You may feel like you are falling apart, but what is really happening is that the ego is disintegrating, allowing your soul to emerge with more clarity and power. Imagine someone who has spent years facing emotional difficulties. They reach a point where they feel they can't take it anymore, that the internal struggle is unbearable. Instead of continuing to fight, they decide to let go of those old beliefs about who they are and what they should be, allowing a new version of themselves to emerge, guided by the soul. In doing so, they realize they have found a new way of living, one that is aligned with their true essence. Remember, you don't need to die physically to begin to live as spirit. You can invite your soul to take control now, in this very moment. Let it guide you in your daily life, in your decisions, and in how you face challenges. This is the purpose of being here on earth, living as soul while we are in physical body. Make this life a life of soul, consciously manifesting. When we talk about conscious creation, we refer to the process of intentionally choosing what we want to manifest in our lives, instead of allowing our experiences to be shaped by unconscious programming. This means we take control of our decisions and actions, not from the noise of our worries, but from the calm and deep knowing of our soul. Many of us, in times of difficulty or desire for change, ask the Spirit to guide us. Sometimes we expect that guidance to come dramatically, like a lightning strike that suddenly gives us clarity and pushes us to act. However, the reality is that most of the time, the Spirit speaks to us with a gentle, peaceful voice from within, one that we can only hear when our mind is calm. Imagine for a moment that you are trying to make an important decision in your life, like moving to another city or changing careers. If your mind is swirling with worries, anxiety, or intense desires, it's hard to perceive the guidance that will truly help you. In this case, your first step is not to seek more answers or try to force a decision, but to calm your mind and open your heart. When our expectations and desires are intense, our emotions and thoughts become like turbulent needles. If you throw a stone into a calm pond, the water clearly reflects the sky and clouds. But if the water is disturbed, nothing is seen clearly. The same happens with our mind. To perceive the soul's guidance, you first need to calm those inner waters. This can happen in simple daily situations. For example, if you have a problem at home or are going through a personal crisis, your first instinct is to want to solve it as soon as possible. However, what you really need is to take a moment of calm, let the emotions settle, and only then will clarity naturally come. To open the channels of communication with the soul, you must be willing to feel deeply. Often, we fear touching those old wounds we still carry inside because they revive past pain. However, in order to integrate those aspects of ourselves that have been wounded, it is essential to honor those traumas. This does not mean that you must identify with them or live in the past, but that you must allow yourself to feel without fear so that those wounds can heal. Think of a common experience. Perhaps a friend or loved one hurt you in the past, and every time you find yourself in a similar situation, that pain resurfaces. Instead of repressing those feelings, what you can do is accept that wound, acknowledge it, and then heal it with love and understanding. When you allow yourself to feel without fear, your ability to perceive the soul's guidance expands. This translates into greater clarity in making decisions, not from impulse or fear, but from a place of calm. It is in that space where inspiration comes, allowing you to create what you desire with ease and joy. The final step in conscious creation is living from the love and wisdom of the soul. When you can accept yourself just as you are, without judgments or expectations, you open up to a new way of living. From this space you create consciously, not from fear or insecurity, but from a place of love and authenticity. This will allow you to manifest experiences that bring you joy and assure you that the world is a safe and abundant place. In summary, the path to conscious creation requires inner calm, emotional healing, and a willingness to listen to the voice of your soul. Only from that place of tranquility can you perceive the guidance you need to create the life you truly desire. The 7 principles of conscious creation. Let's break down the 7 basic steps to conscious creation, explaining how you can manifest what you want in your life consciously and deliberately. Recognize your power as a creator. The journey begins with acknowledging your ability to shape your reality. You attract people, situations, and experiences that align with your beliefs. This process can unfold unconsciously when unresolved fears or feelings of lack dictate your experiences. For instance, if you feel undeserving of something, you may inadvertently draw circumstances that validate this belief. However, by choosing to create consciously, you affirm that lack holds no power over you. Recognize your divine nature and inherent worth, which empower you to manifest the desires of your heart. Consider the example of seeking a healthy relationship. If you unconsciously believe you are unworthy of love, you may attract relationships that echo this lack. Consciously embracing your worth opens the door to relationships that reflect your intrinsic value. Affirm that you already possess what you seek. Affirmation is the next step. Everything you wish to experience already exists within you. While this may seem challenging during difficult times, it is a practice of remembering that qualities like peace, love, and prosperity are part of your essence. For example, if you desire more peace, start by appreciating moments of calm that already grace your life, such as a serene morning walk or quiet moments before bed. These instances are the foundation of the peace you seek. Observe the essence of what you already have. Look around and notice how the essence of your desires is already present in your life. If prosperity is your goal, observe signs of abundance, such as the support of loved ones, good health, or skills you possess. Shifting focus from what is lacking to what is present strengthens your connection to abundance. For example, improving your financial situation begins with acknowledging your current resources, your job, talents, or community support. Choose to amplify what you enjoy. After identifying the essence of what you appreciate in your life, consciously ask for more. If moments of peace exist, invite greater peace. If love manifests in small ways, request more love. This step underscores the idea that what you desire is already within your reach, and your role is to amplify its presence. For example, in a harmonious relationship, focus on nurturing harmony rather than dwelling on conflicts. By choosing to expand the positive, you invite more of it into your life. Request more of what brings joy. Recognizing that the essence of your desires already resides within you is transformative. Actively ask for more of what you enjoy, whether it's love, prosperity, or peace. This practice shifts your focus from scarcity to abundance, allowing the energies of your desires to flow freely into your life. Transform essence into substance. When you focus on the essence, you enable it to manifest as tangible substance. Love, peace, and prosperity take on various forms, materializing as new opportunities, deeper connections, or an expansion of your current blessings. For example, desiring more love might manifest through enriched friendships, self-love, or encounters with people who truly value you. Prioritize essence over specifics. Lastly, focus on the essence of your desires rather than fixating on specific details. If you seek peace, immerse yourself in the feeling of peace without worrying about its exact form. Trust that your higher self will orchestrate the perfect manifestations. Conscious creation involves recognizing the essence of your desires, inviting more of it, and trusting the process to unfold in alignment with your highest good. By embracing your divine nature and denying lack a place in your thoughts, you open the door for abundance to flow effortlessly into your life. Until next time, dear friends,